everybody and anybody who happens to be checking this out. My name is Matt Stranick. Some of you who may be knowing me through the Keanu College application of this program may know me as Dr. Matt or what have you. Some of you have seen me on LinkedIn, most of you haven't. And I'm here hyping the new Writers on Writing interview series out of Northern Alberta. And we are exploring creativity writ large, which is the mandate of this show. We've had a few interviews going out already, and we are absolutely, totally stoked, personally and across the board, I can say, within this endeavor, to be joined by Chris MacDonald, who is a author of personal memoir. Can we call it that, Chris, in terms of your two published works?
I think that's the closest thing, yes.
After a fashion. We don't like to put too many labels on things, but this is a man with a couple of books published, and we're definitely here for the specifics of that. Chris is also, you are the proprietor of your tattoo establishment, sir?
That's right.
So a man who is an artist, entrepreneur, author, and I'm sure there's all kinds of other things that we have yet to speak to, which surely will, I would anticipate, come up within these next 30 to 40 odd minutes of this literary, somewhat interview series. So again, much appreciation and respect to you for being here, Chris. Thanks a lot for making time on a relatively short notice through Instagram for this.
I'm happy to. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just to begin with, to start with, you do have a book that is currently in the cycle of publication, promotion, reaching people, Days and Days, which is a seriously lit memoir all about a journey that Chris went on to, among various places within the memoir, Sunderland, UK, which is a major significant city within Britain, UK, for all kinds of historical reasons. The reason in question, one of the reasons in question, leading Chris to that journey was through the band Leatherface. And Leatherface is, for anybody who is more than a passing aficionado of guitar-based music, you have to know they're one of, to my mind, and Chris, you may agree or not agree with this, one of the greatest musical guitar-based acts ever to emerge from Great Britain. If you're connected to it in a personal way, then it's on the level of anything. It's on the level of the Beatles. It's on the level of the Replacements. It's on the level of, I mean, I'm just listening to people for me. I put Leatherface and Frankie Stubbs as being one of the top songwriters of all time. And when I see a book coming out about my favorite band of all time by a Canadian author on a Canadian publisher, ECW Press, those are excellent people who have been putting out excellent cultural commentary and all kinds of literary radness for decades now. I just think, okay, I will approach this person and see if they're willing to have a chat on our interview series here. Again, just kind of setting up my personal interest and motivation, kind of framing this, pal. Again, anything that you want to add to that, or by way of your opening gambit here, pal?
I hadn't thought too much about it, but any chance to, it's funny, I've written a book about Leatherface, and I'm still very happy to talk about them at almost any given chance. So hence why I'm here.
Well, that's fabulous. Okay. And I think, first of all, the Leatherface conversation is a conversation which anybody who has participated in the Leatherface conversation will know that it is an ongoing, meaningful dialogue involving a whole host of people, some of whom have passed, many are still alive, and who are playing vital, significant parts of an independent music scene, internationally traveling, touring, recording musicians based in Canada, the United Kingdom, USA, and Europe, throughout Europe, and in other environs as well. Leatherface is one of these artists you can mention in any of these contexts, and people who know will, as you say, be happy and interested to talk about them pretty much for any length of time. That's been my experience. I'm happy to say I had the opportunity to see them live when they were sort of an active touring, group around 2000, actually pre 9/11. Went down to the States to see them. Imagine that, with a veil, and it was fucking dope. It blew my mind. It still blows my mind. Just thinking about it here, it blows my mind that it happened and that I was there. That's how I feel about it. And I know my pals who jumped in the car and went down there with me would feel the same. And so, again, you've had that experience. You've actually gone and been sort of part of that milieu. You've actually made the journey that I think many of us have thought of making, right? What happens if I go and approach somebody or a group of people who I just respect immensely and kind of sort of enter, and see what happens there? So I guess if I may start then, sir, just to speak to what we have been speaking to, for those who have yet to read your book or encounter it for the first time, what put you on that particular path from being a fan of this band to writing a book about this band?
I think it's a whole gamut of like things that happened. I thought of the story a long time ago. When we were on the journey, when we were backpacking through Europe, and by the time we'd met up with the band and hung out with them, and then carried on through Scotland and Ireland, by the time Ireland hit, I was thinking to myself that this is going to make a pretty good story, because it was unfolding as, they say life imitates fiction, vice versa. And it was definitely doing that by the end. It had a natural arc in all the ways. And it was, so that was the first seed of it. And I guess the second big one was, somebody told me at some point that you need to find things to write about that haven't been really discussed before, which is a pretty tricky thing to do, as you can imagine. But during COVID, when we weren't allowed to travel or listen to live music, that trip popped into my head, because it was both of those things. And at that moment, I thought to myself, I wish that I could just order a Leatherface book online, because I would right now. And I looked, and there was none. And then I said, well, maybe I should take a stab at it. And that was it.
Bro, kudos to that.
Because it was the book that I wanted to read at that moment,
So again, just to kind of cross the T's and dot the I's here on a couple of fronts for the listener, when we're talking about your initial travels to and through Europe and meeting the band and becoming friends with them, what years are we speaking of here specifically?
That was in 1999 that we went on that trip.
Oh, wow. So that's like back when they're getting back together, when the song with Hot Water Music is coming out, and they're actually looking at meaningful touring in the United States for the first time. That's kind of, yeah. Because I remember, like, I became a fan of Leatherface in Halifax, Nova Scotia, with my pals in this friggin' clunky place we were renting. We did this mass order, from some distro, and I got friggin' Jerry Knoll. I got, and the Split. It was like right when the Split with Hot Water Music came out, and I'm like, holy fuck. Just holy fuck. And that was it, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, just to put that same relative period of time, man, that's cool. And so you went through, you became friends with them of sorts, enough to have, enough material, I suppose, to be able to do this project. Now, how did you sort of, this isn't your first published book.
No.
and you're also a very creative dude, based out of Toronto, correct?
Yes.
Things I should have confirmed beforehand if I
That's a
were
good
really
guess.
operating professionally here.
Yeah.
And so, based out of Toronto, I mean, did you grow up in the area? What's your sort of background towards being a person who even considers writing books and or being a tattoo artist, for that matter? I'd be interested to know about that.
Well, a lot of the first book touches on this.
Okay.
I was born in a small town called Alliston outside of Toronto, probably an hour and a half or so away from Toronto. And as a kid, I grew up in a family. It was a bit of a tumultuous upbringing at one point, but my mother was an extreme creative to the point where it didn't really matter whether it was collages, whether it was like, I'm gonna paint this wall right now, or paint a mural on the wall. She painted hot rod flames on our pickup truck. We're talking that level, which is another level.
That's Canadian as fuck,
That's
if I can put it that way. I mean,
yeah.
non-Canadians listen
Yeah.
to the show.
It
Just
just painted
FYI.
the whole picture right there.
Yeah, man, that is tight. That is
Yeah.
tight.
And
Okay.
so my brother, also highly creative, fantastic artist, and I'm 10 years younger than my brother Rob, so I'm just sitting there watching these two people do that all the time. They're just creating, everywhere all the
Can't
time.
help but sop it up a bit.
And that's it. I wanted to be like them. You know what I mean? I just absorbed it. So, and it really did become, it's many things to me. It is, it was amazing to listen to Jim's interview that you did with him, because there's a lot that we have in common, and the one, art will save lives, you know what I mean? And that's for sure kept me grounded. Like, it was the only thing at one point. And also there's just this heavy connection to family. So every time I did it, it was, like I was back in that circle, so art is emotional for me for sure, but that's where it all began.
Well, that's awesome. And then again, right? I'm taking it to be sort of again, just I lived in the GTA for a while. Oshawa region, 905, Durham represent. Sorry, I have to throw that out there. Some 41 made it into Ajax, Ontario, folks. It's quietly more pop punk than you imagined. And I mean, my time around Toronto is that I really valued my time there from a Canadian standpoint, having access to just, I can get on the GO train and then an hour later be in front of the CN Tower and wander around with my kids. It's, to my mind, I mean, I know it's, what we're supposed to say is fuck Toronto, and I'm a Maritimer, and I can say that with emphasis and with more legitimacy than most people in other regions can. But I am saying I enjoyed the fuck out of Toronto. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I would consider living there again if I had the opportunity. And a lot of it is just like, record stores, concert venues, bookstores, just, weirdos in the street, stuff you take for granted, where maybe if you live in a smaller center without being, within 2 hours of one of these kinds of places, you might not get as much of. And so what you're describing, I think, speaks to, a lot of Canadian creative people who, you're surrounded by a lot of nothing, and then you got your closest city where you can kind of check things out until you can kind of figure out where you even belong. And so you've remained significantly, I guess, within the Toronto area generally, intentionally or by convenience.
Probably a bit of both. I really enjoy Toronto. I think it's you know, it can be like any city. It has its pros and cons for sure, but in the end, it's home to me. And every as far and as wide as I've ever traveled, I enjoy coming back here. And the neighborhood that the shop is in is very special to me. You know, down at College in Dufferin, it's a beautiful part of town. I
So can you speak more to your connection to that part of Toronto? If we're gonna go into Toronto, we may as well go full Toronto. And friends, I am happy to go there. So, I mean, it's a personal spot for you.
Yeah,
How so? Why?
there was a lot of personal growth that happened in in that intersection. Really, it started with my brother when he first moved out on his own. He lived at Rusholme and Dundas, and so I remember distinctly getting off the bus there at it was a 7-Eleven or something at the time, and it's still there, which is it's interesting to me. And then a few years go by, and I am just, you know, it's just desolate. I'm in the punk scene. I have no money. I'm living in a rooming house that is just infested with cockroaches, and we're smoking single smokes, and you know, just you know, living it, right, drinking Wildcat
You're
Strong.
having your time. If
Yeah.
you if you have had those times,
Hmm.
you can have to say there were no times like those
Yeah.
times. Not everybody's going to go down that path, but for those who have, and I mean, I've seen this. You know, I've spoken with Colin from
Hmm.
San Am. I'm speaking with Jim. You know, down in
Hmm.
San Diego. I'm speaking with all kinds of people involved with the scene over the years, and
Hmm.
that's one of the cool things about being part of the music scene. That's
Hmm.
part of being like, I am an active component of this fucking weird cultural music dominated enterprise, whatever the fuck it even is. You
Hmm.
know, I think like people of our general age, right? Late Gen X, whatever, you know, the 40 sort of, sort of 35 going on 55 kind of demographic.
Yeah.
We got memories of the analog world. We got memories
Hmm.
of
Oh yeah.
pre-internet zines, books, and like, you know, me sending my shitty little poetry manuscript to ECW Publishing with a, self-addressed stomped envelope and like,
Hmm.
it's just like, but it was what you did. And like, I'm going to work my shitty job. I'm going to, live like a fucking tramp because I
Hmm.
can, and I'm going to listen to awesome music. And, that's just lots of people all across, the
Hmm.
thing participated in that. So when you speak about those kinds of experiences, again, it's like, yeah, 90s free internet. It was fucking dope. It was pretty tight,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? And that kind of general post era, even, right? So again,
Yes.
international city, lots going on. Who are some of your favorite bands? Who are some of your like favorite just Toronto bands of the era that you could name?
From that era,
Well,
or
or generally, overall, right? You're talking about a global metropolitan city. You've lived there pretty much your whole life. So, yeah, to speak writ
well,
large,
it's
Toronto artists who you admire, generally, I suppose.
geez, it's kind of a mecca. It
Okay.
it's a wild place, and at one point you could go out any night, and Toronto is just full of musicians that should be famous, and I'm always asking myself why they're not when I'm watching them. But there's something pretty amazing about that. It's just it's also pretty humbling too, and literally the place is full of them. And from going from punk to the more things I listen to now, like one of my favorite Toronto bands to ever exist uh, is $100, sort of an alt country, like a ramshackle alt country band, and they're incredible. They're incredible, and they're just ahead of their time. And the list goes on and on. Elliot Brood, The Sadies,
That's some Canadiana right there, friends.
like the
Yeah.
Sadies are probably the
I,
greatest.
I see where you're going with this. I
You
see where
know,
you're going with
there
this. It's
is
sort of,
just
yeah.
mega talent. Like I saw the Sadies play 2 months ago with Rick White from Eric's Trip and Elevator to Hell, and it was
I'm
like,
from Moncton, and
yeah,
that
you
is
know all about
fucking
that.
shit I grew up with, man.
Yeah,
Like, that was my time.
jeez,
Yeah, yeah. So, but
just
do go on, sir.
amazing, you know.
Yeah,
Um, so we're suffering a little bit at the moment. Music venues are closing. It's
I've
difficult
heard that.
here. Yeah, it's difficult, but the talent is still there, and it's it for that reason alone. Toronto is, if you're a music lover, it's a great place to be.
Well, and plus, I mean, again, right? As a tattoo artist,
Oh,
you make your living at being a tattoo artist.
yes,
How long have you been making your living as a tattoo artist?
I've been tattooing for 25 years now.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Professionally paid. For those of us who don't know, tattooing is not a rid seal trade in Canada that I'm aware of. Or like, I mean, you got public health certification,
oh, yeah.
and I mean, you got all kinds of reach. So when did you did you go through an apprenticeship with a different shop before you
Yes.
set up your own? Because I understand I've got a bunch of ink. I mean, you have to know. I got like 20, 25. I'm always getting more whenever I can.
Yeah.
And every shop is different. I love fucking getting tattoos. It's my favorite thing to do. Every year, I just make a point around my birthday. I'm going to get some more tattoos and
Yeah.
just kind of spend $400, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so again, every shop has its own vibe. Every shop has its own culture, and it's sort of like the nexus, right? Like, what do all the weirdos from all the different art scenes want to do? They want to get tattoos, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's the carny culture, which I'm not diminishing, and I'm not placing you within that. But I mean, I'm saying, right, musicians, visual artists, any kind of creative, it's just they all find their way through the tattoo shop at some juncture or other. And so that's a really special place, right? Again, for people who aren't into tattoo culture, you have to know that it occupies a certain cultural significance, right? Cultural transactions, visual art, permanent identity, the list goes on, right? And so it's a special spot for various kinds of reasons. So again, at what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to actually go into the thing, I'm going to set up my shop, I'm going to get my business license, I'm going to do all this? Because you got to hustle, you got to be entrepreneurial with this stuff. What sort of brought you to that part of that journey, if I can ask?
Well, again, it goes back to my family, because my oldest brother, Rob, became a tattooer 10 years before I did. So he's been tattooing for 35 years.
Whoa.
So again, just another thing that he influenced me on a just a higher level. It was I grew up in the punk scene. I grew up skateboarding, and art was everything to me at some point. And to walk into when I learned that he had become a tattooer and that he apprenticed, and I went to visit him, it was just so like a seminal moment. It was I just needed to know how to do it, and especially when you have to understand that it all is sort of hinged on your first one generally. And with me, having your brother tattoo you, and this was a design that I originally had the concept for. I drew it up, and then it became collaborative, and then he took it and made it so it would make a good tattoo, and then he tattooed it on me, and it became, on a good day, even if whoever's tattooing you have no idea who they are, but you have a great time, that alone will hook you, let alone it being your brother. And it was so special. and that was a feeling that I just wanted in my life forever from that moment on. So I just became, I try my best to get into it, and even the shop that we run now, it tries to pay homage to that moment.
So your brother and you are currently in this tattoo enterprise together. Is that what I'm hearing, or am I missing?
Yeah, he's still tattooing. He has his own shop outside of
Okay.
Toronto, but yeah, no, we can't work together. But
Okay, that's kind of what I
but
was.
but that's this thing that like has bound us for a long time.
Well, again, right? A lot of places I could go with that. I'm just going to say that again, for folks who are part of the tattoo culture. I mean, my son is a pretty talented little visual artist guy, and at one point when I was in my, about, I don't know, 4 years ago, he was around 11 years old, 10 years old at that point. He left a drawing of a little monster guy lying around, and I was just like, okay, zipper zip. And now he's like my de facto designer, right? I get my kid. He's done 4 of them so far. I got him under commission for 2 more. So these sort of family, sort of driven connections through the tattoo culture. Again, as you say, there's really nothing quite like it. Were you doing much in terms of visual art prior to, or did you sort of see the tattoo thing as sort of a way into visual art?
Oh yeah, like I said, I was doing art the entire time. I never stopped doing art since I learned to draw when I was a kid. It was
so visual based art, right?
Yes.
And so when did personal memoir sort of become a thing? Like when did you realize, oh, in addition to liking art, visually kind of oriented, in addition to being a huge fan of music? 2 questions, I guess, bifurcating here. Do you identify as a musician? Are you a musician, recovering or otherwise, yourself? And what drove you into the literature side of the enterprise?
I am a musician.
Okay.
Of sorts.
Awesome.
I play in an alt country punk influenced band called LeBarons, and we've been playing for a while.
Fucking A. I love it.
I am keeping my day job. It's just fun, right?
Of course.
And writing, all of it can be traced back to family, and that's what it took me a long time to figure it out, but it was being shown how to be creative, was being shown how to express yourself. And when I figured that out, first it was forever, it was just this thing that I did, and over the years it began to unravel. But it all comes back to just expression, whether it's writing, art, visual art, or music. There's that thing in me that really enjoys documenting and communicating and trying to make something really cool out of, hopefully it's really cool. Just trying to make something out of nothing, really. And maybe it also stems back to, like, we lived on a farm and I didn't talk to very many people. So maybe it's just this, some of that is in there as well.
Well, and so there we go, right? The dichotomy here, right? Mm-hmm. You have, again, the most quintessentially sort of Canadian paradigm there, if I can put a point on it, with the rural agrarian kind of upbringing. Lots of time to yourself, lots of time with your own thoughts, lots of time to get into trouble in the outdoors, potentially.
Well, and I think that was very peaceful for me.
Yeah.
So it's just for, like chasing that first high,
and then
so
being able to
peace,
and readily then access, because as you say, just a couple hours down the road from one of the most significant culture centers in the world, right, with Toronto. I don't know. Again, I just I know Toronto is everybody's pinata, and don't even get me started on Drake versus Kendrick. And yet, on the other hand, please do, please do. We got a music podcast for that, folks. But again, we're 30 minutes in here, and I guess I'm sort of going to ask now, in terms of what further or ongoing activities do you have associated with your awesome memoir, your significant memoir? Like, are you still sort of in the process of I guess, making people aware of that in an active promotion cycle with ECW, if such exists? Are you sort of going out and doing other podcasts or interviews? Where are you sort of positioning this endeavor, going forward? Is it a sort of part of an ongoing dialogue with an audience? I guess I'm sort of wondering where we are relative to where you intend to be, right?
It's been a very interesting ride for me. And this book got quite a bit of attention just because of the subject matter.
Of course.
And so it's been very interesting for me to connect with people at this point all over the world. And these are things that I never expected to have happen. And being able to just write a book and have it get published and go out there quite frankly, was a big dream of mine.
That's amazing. Lots of people dream of that, man. That is tight. Congratulations just on that aspect of it, man. You got to hustle, and it's got to be luck, and you got to be real good with people.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm very grateful. I have ECW is incredible.
Amazing, highly lit Canadian publisher.
Yeah.
I'm saying this as an academic. I'm saying this as a Canadian. I'm saying this as somebody who's into pop culture. Like, if you go back on their like music sort of oriented writing catalog, they wrote that awesome book. What is it? Never Been the Same. That huge book about the Canadian fucking indie music scene by that awesome acclaimed journalist. I think his name is Michael Barkley. I might be wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's a great dude. I love that.
Never Been the Same. I mean, I fucking got that as soon as it came out, and I'm like,
it's like a
bound. It's got the whole fucking history of alt punk, alt country in Canada.
Yeah.
Like everything that influenced Blue Rodeo. Holy fuck, Handsome Dad. Don't get me started. I mean, just cow punk, like, it's just, and like, it's just.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
Really...
I was 20 years old, 23 years old, whatever the fuck, when that came out, and I needed to read that. I'm just like, yeah. Canadian little, music interested university nerd, dishwasher fucker needs to read this book, and I did, and I still stand by it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think of ECW Press.
Yeah, they have really interesting titles.
Deep catalog, thoughtful catalog, and you're just, again, what I see as, again, I hate to position you as a Canadian cultural enterprise, but you kind of are, my dude, with this. You're entering into a tradition wherein people like me get to put things like what you people do on a university syllabus or a college syllabus, right? This is the kind of agency that I have within my area. And this is where it's like, okay, two middle-aged Canadian dudes on different parts of the fucking Confederation can have a talk about literature and punk music and, what makes the world go round. And so, again, man, I just got to say, like, we are kind of doing the downward slope here because mindful of time and people's attention spans. I just wish that I could somehow shoe in more fandom over Leatherface into this, which really just makes me think, man, we got to have the music conversation over at the other point, if you ever felt like it. Just strictly the nerding out over contemporary and past punk music.
Yeah.
That would be its own fucking thing, which I would
appreciate.
I would love to do that. So maybe that'll be a thing, folks. But is there anything else you want to speak to here before we kind of close her down? Again, I'm just really grateful that you found the time on this Sunday. like I said, I'm putting this into somewhat of a stunt production. It's going to be coming out the same day that we record it, so just a few hours here. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to put into the recording before we close it down, my friend?
Well, yeah, if you're out there and you are a creative and you are struggling, then all I can say is that you need to stick with it and you need to believe in yourself, because if you stick to it, it will happen, and it is rewarding. And I'm very grateful for everyone that has helped me get to wherever it is I am right now. But I love this place, so I just if there are any of those people out there listening, thank you.
Fantastic. I could not think of any single way better than that to go out. Thanks a lot for being here, folks. The show notes will most definitely include all of the books and musical enterprises Chris is associated with, as well as his social media deets. And be sure to follow all of them, because there continues to be significant interest, not just in the current book, of course, through ECW Press. Be sure to visit their website for those details, but as well across, his tattoo and other cultural enterprises. Again, much appreciation and respect for being here, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Bye
so
for now,
much,
everybody.
Matt.
Take care.